little bit of a late start.
And I'm
Yeah, that sounds like it. All right. Good evening. The time is now 5 o'clock on February 6th, and it's time to call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order. Ms. Patterson, will you please note attendance for the record? Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. The first item of business is, actually, let's check and see if there's any folks here this evening for public comment. I don't see anyone in the room, and I do not see anyone attending online. So moving back to the agenda, the agenda was circulated on Friday. Is there a motion to approve the agenda tonight? Or alternatively, is there a motion to modify the agenda to add items for future discussion?
I move that we adopt the agenda and add a discussion under new business or discussion, whichever.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. For, I guess, is there additional comment on it? Do you have a preference for adding it to future business?
Ends up at the same place.
Okay. Everybody's in favor? Aye. Okay. All right. So we'll be adding 3 items for future discussion. And those, I'm assuming, would be the Blake decision and potential impact to the city, police reform issues in the legislature, and behavioral health incident reports.
In less than 3 minutes.
Yeah. All right. So again, we've already taken and looked at public comment. I did not see any members of the public who wish to speak to an item on the agenda or otherwise. Is there any comment that staff would like to make before we go forward? Looks like not at this time. So in that case, let's go ahead and move forward to approval of the minutes. Committee members, are there any questions, comments, or concerns about the minutes?
Move that it be approved as presented.
Okay.
Seconded.
Thank you. Everybody in favor? Yay. All right. In that case, let's go ahead and move forward with the discussion. There are 2 items under discussion: the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan work plan, and after that, we'll move on to the Washington State Rating Bureau. Chief.
Alrighty, so I wanted to bring this item back because we do have to accomplish by the end of this year readopting the Snoqualmie Emergency Management Plan. This was introduced on October 17th last year, 2022. I briefed the group on it. On October 27th, I sent the first part out, which was the basic plan, to the committee to be reviewed. Moving forward, because we have 16 emergency support functions, or ESFs, that need to be reviewed as well. My plan is in February to send you ESFs 1 through 3, in March 4 through 7, in April 8 through 11, May 12 through 14, and June 15 through 16. And then in July or August or even September, when the council meets, we can bring it forward for a final review and vote. As I mentioned before, it is a pretty comprehensive, no pun intended, document. There are a lot of pages that go along with it, and it is a planning document as well. And we also need to follow what's called CBG 101, which also involves getting an input from the community as well. So I'll keep you posted on that, but that is going to be the work plan moving forward. You should see these coming forward each month for review and comment, okay? Yeah.
How does the public comment happen then? Is it done in pieces as we're reviewing it? Is it going to be something that's specially noticed or something else?
That is going to be my goal, as well as to include it as we're moving forward with it to provide that review. There is a municipal code that we adopted a few years ago that involved establishing an emergency management committee or commission that would have people from different groups within the community. We have not established that yet, but my goal is to actually bring that forward to the mayor for consideration, get those positions filled, and then they will review the document as well as we move forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on to the Washington State Rating Bureau.
All right, just wanted to report out on a
the WSRB rating report that we got just a couple days ago, just to give you kind of a little high-level overview of what it is. So the WSRB stands for Washington State Survey and Ratings Bureau, which is an independent nonprofit public service organization that's been around since 1911. Basically, what they do is they provide data that helps insurance companies accurately evaluate risk, and ultimately one of the factors that helps determine insurance rates for businesses and residents in the city. This rating occurs every 5 years, and it's given on they give a protection scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being an exemplary fire protection agency department, and 10 indicates that capabilities, if any, are insufficient for any kind of rating. So just to kind of give you an overview of where it is in the state, there's 1 department that's a number 1 rating, which is the city of Seattle. And then after that, there's 16 that are at the 2, 70 that are at 3, 89 that are at 4, 130 at 5, 120 at 6, 111 at 7, 79 at 8, 26 at 9, and 14 at 10. That's a total of 656 cities and fire districts that are in that ranking. So right now, the city of Snoqualmie is graded at a class 4, which is a 3.65 rating. It's on a point scale there. In 2017, we were rated 3.7. So we went down a little bit. In this case, the lower the number, the better. That means that you're getting closer to the next one. So for us, we would need to get below a 3.0 to move to the next class, which is the 3rd class. When they put together this report, they look at 4 main categories, and there's 65 different subcategories underneath those, which give you your rating. So they look at water supply, which is the adequacy of the water supply, the hydrants, the number of the hydrants, inspection of the hydrants, maintenance, flow testing, things like that. Your water system components, the maintenance, the operation of your water system. They look at fire department, which is kind of a broad category, but that looks at anything having to do with the fire department itself. So that'd be staffing, apparatus, facilities, training, response. Those are just some examples. They look at emergency communications, which is our dispatch center. And just to point out, that's one that we really don't have much control over. We do have a representative on the governing board for NORCOM, but how the points are, it's pretty standard for everybody that's part of the NORCOM group. We don't have any really effect over those numbers. And then the last one is fire safety control, which includes information on the fire marshal, plan review, inspections, fire protection systems, public education, fire investigation, and building code. Those are all kind of lumped together under the fire control. So the 4 that covered are water supply, fire department, emergency communications, and fire control. How they determine the ratings is it's points-based. The evaluator from the WSRB will send you a list of all the documents and references that he wants to look at, and he uses those to give you points on their listing. And then after you provide them all the documents, they come and do an interview for 4 or 5 hours where they meet with different members of the staff. Myself, they met with the water department, Matt Hedger from the water department, John Cooper from the building department, our training officer. They met, and they basically, kind of similar to accreditation, they review all the documents, check for accuracy, ask you questions about what you put in so that they can determine the point value. So he puts together a report based on those point values, and how they show is a percentage of the points that were reached in that category. So for example, if it was hydrant maintenance, it might say 60%. That means that you've met 60, your points equal 60% of the points that are available in that subcategory. So we got, as I said earlier, we did that back in, I believe that was in October, November of 2022 is when they came out and did the interview. And then we just got a report back a couple days ago signifying that we are at 3.65. So the question is just to look at what now, how do we use that? How do we use that for the fire department as a planning tool? Obviously the goal is not to fall down further, to fall into a 5. But more importantly, we're looking at how we can get better, how we can possibly get up into a 3. That'd be the next step. Again, we're at 3.65. We'd have to get to 2.99 to be in the next category of 3. So we have to look at ways that we can improve. Some things are kind of out of our control. As I mentioned, the NORCOM one, there's the emergency communications, not much we can do on that one. And some of the things require more big shifts or policy changes. Some of the big ticket items like, we lose points because coverage in the city, we only have one station. We can't, they base on how fast you can get to areas of the city. So we lose points on that. Also on our apparatus, not having a ladder truck is another big one that we lose points on. So there's some of those things that are big level, staffing level changes, facilities, equipment that we, like I said, are kind of bigger ticket items that require more of a policy change or planning. But there are some things that we can target and to try and get more points on, some things that we can do in the meantime. Some of those would be for the fire department, specifically our training levels. Now that we have the training captain on days, we'll be able to boost up our records for training. That's where we get a lot of the points. Certifications that the firefighters hold is another thing that we can kind of target in regards to raising our points. For the water department, Public Works, the biggest thing there is hydrant maintenance, flow testing. I think you've seen it come before you in regards to the budget. Personnel that might be needed, maybe a part-time or summer help to be able to do flow tests on all the hydrants in the city, be able to mark them with gallons per minute that they flow. These are some of the things that we can work on from the water side of it. And a lot of it's just, better record keeping for the maintenance records. And then for the building department, again, it's, how they conduct their inspections from the permit level, as well as some of the certifications and training that the building officials go through is another thing that we can target to help get us down or get us more points to get us down lower. So where we're looking at going is we're going to try and schedule a meeting with the WSRB, the person that did our evaluation, just to have a conversation with them, to dig more into depth in the report and find out exactly where we can get our biggest bang for our buck. What's going to get us the most amount of points, the low-hanging fruit, you will, that we can, target and see what we need to do to gain those points to get down lower. And then based on that, we're going to work on creating a work plan in consultation with the water department, with Public Works, with the director, as well as the building department, to sit down and kind of plan out a work plan as to what we need to do to move closer to some of these things I mentioned in regards to the maintenance of the hydrants, the flow testing, the marking, and some of the stuff in buildings. So that's kind of the plan as to how we're going to use this document moving forward. It's done, I think I said it's done every 5 years. So we wouldn't be due for another one, for another 5 years from now, but we want to have some steps that we can take to hopefully have a goal for points that we can get to so that we can get down to that category 3 or that class 3 the next time that we're evaluated. Is there any questions on that?
Councilmember Benson?
Yeah, I know in Parks and Public Works, Mike Chambliss has been talking about a program that they're going to start using for planning out projects and routine maintenance and things like that. It's I forget what it's.
Is it Tyler?
Tyler, yeah. Is something like that something that would help the fire department, or
it's probably, well, the water department, but it's not going to necessarily help the fire department. It'll help greatly in the water department because we do, our not deficiency, not really the right word, but there are a lot of points that can be made up in the water department. And so I think it might help in regards to their record keeping. That was one issue that we had. And I think a lot of that could be contributed over the last couple of years with the changes, some of the personnel we lost during COVID, but the record keeping could be tuned up a lot down there, and that will probably help in regards to Tyler keeping track of the inventory and things. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to help him out. And then the big one we need in the water department is to try and figure out a way to do the flow testing. That's where we're losing a lot of points too, is because although the fire department goes out and inspects every single hydrant every year, looks at it and turns it on to make sure it works, there's actually a longer process that probably takes more, the one that we do takes maybe 5 minutes. 10 minutes for the crews. That's why we can reach everyone. The one that you're supposed to do that includes the full check, that includes the hydrant flow, and that is probably something that's going to take 30 minutes. So obviously it's a lot longer. Per hydrant.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to be a lot longer. And we have, I know we have at least 300 hydrants, if not closer to 400. I don't remember the exact number because of what the crews investigate. But being able to do the flow testing and possibly having somebody that works, maybe a part-time position or something that can come in and do the flow testing, do the marking of the hydrants, I think is going to help get us up that next level.
I can expand on that a little bit. That's a really good question you've asked. So Tyler is going to affect everybody. And to Mike's point, he is right. It is the record keeping piece that was missing last time. What we have talked about before, and this came up in our accreditation, is probably going to come up again in accreditation later this year. When we go for reaccreditation, was one of the recommendation was about doing more maintenance on our water system. That still hasn't been accomplished since our last accreditation cycle. And to Mike's point, he's talking about flushing the hydrant system. We have to dechlorinate the water that's coming out of them. It's a very laborious process that it's something the firefighters can't do. It's something that we would need specialized trained staff. We could use seasonal staff to do that in the summertime to handle it, but we are going to put together a plan. We can request WSRB come in again before our next re-rating if we think we've made accomplishments that can get us higher or lower in the rating system. Lower is better. And we're planning on doing that just now while it's fresh and we're just out of the cycle. That's why we're putting together this work plan so that we can start attacking these things and checking them off the list. To Mike's point about low hanging fruit, yeah, there's some simple things that we could do. Certifications for our building official and fire marshal, those are things that we can accomplish pretty easily. But getting full credit for a fire pump or a ladder truck, that's going to take 6 FTEs on duty every day to do that, to get full credit. We're not asking for full credit on the staffing levels. We're never going to get there. Mm-hmm. But if we had a second station that was staffed with volunteers, that may get us closer. So,
Chief, to the extent that we are able to get down into the category 3, how much of an impact is that going to have on citizens' insurance records? Is it significant? Is it going to be minor?
That's a really good question. So, because I've gotten different reviews from different insurance people that I talk to. This only affects the fire insurance portion of their insurance, which is a smaller sliver than their overall insurance and what they pay. I don't know the exact number or what the exact percentage is if we went from a 4 to a 3. Personally, I think it's just a good business practice if we can move in that direction, and it does save people money in the long run. But I can try to get that answer. I've heard 2 different stories or 2 different versions of that. Even when Councilmember Sunwall, former Councilmember Sunwall, was on the council, he talked about that a little bit as far as what it affects and how the rating is. The fact that the city is in a full water system that has a hydrogenated system, that's a positive, that's a plus for the city. But if we can get it down, I can try to come up with a number for you, but it is a couple of percentage point savings is what I've been told.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions?
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you both. All right, so moving on, we do have one item that's on the agenda for future discussion, and that's going to be the vehicle trespass ordinance that will be, do you think it will be up and available for the next meeting? Okay. All right, and so that one, just so that everyone's on the same page, after one of the city council meetings, we had briefly heard an update that Issaquah last year had basically updated their municipal code to include a criminal vehicle trespass count that would basically allow the city to pursue charges that may not otherwise be brought or prosecuted by King County. Yeah. And it also would potentially make it less appealing for people to come here and try to steal cars. So we're hoping to hear a little bit more about that with some facts and figures at the next meeting or sometime thereafter. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right.
Excellent. I just got gas stolen from my tank the other night.
Really?
Downtown. Yeah. Could we use that to get them too? No, we'd have to catch them first.
All right. So do we want to move on to the additional items for a future date and at least get those introduced and then figure out what kind of information we're looking forward?
Absolutely.
So I guess the first one would be the Blake, just in order of what we spoke about earlier, the Blake decision potential impact to the city.
Yeah, the Blake decision, I knew nothing of this like 3 weeks ago, so I'm getting up to speed, and it's only fair to share this with everyone else. Now I'm the expert. Yeah. I'll be getting my LSAT next. But this is on the King County Regional Law, Safety, and Justice. And I'll just take all 3 of them real quickly. And I want to introduce them tonight so that everybody has a chance to follow up. There are 3 really big takeaways. First one was the Blake decision. as I mentioned, I knew absolutely nothing about, but it's the vacating of past criminal prosecution for those that have minor drug charges, but it goes all the way back to 1971. So what they're doing is initially looking at those that are incarcerated today and those under court orders to have those vacated. But then there's the other part to it, and that's the legal financial obligations, the LFOs. I just figured that one out, LFOs. And that is anything that's related as far as fines that were paid since 1971, and people can actually go on and fill out a form. But here's the challenge to it is most of the counties in the state have different systems they've used through the years, and it goes back to microfiche on a lot of the cases. So it's going to be years of probably going through and getting all these cases vacated. And I asked Mr. Sturbank if there's any financial obligation, because some of those fees go back to the municipalities, some go to the county, some go to the state. I have no idea. So he's checking into that. So there's more to come. The state did pass in the last legislature $86 million. And here's the other piece to it is June 30th, the state will take over doing the research going back, but they're trying to get through as many of these cases as possible. And there's like 40,000 cases over the years. So it's going to be pretty arduous, and only a few hundred have been settled. The second one is on police reform. We talked about legislation that's coming forward. We don't have a lobbyist to bring us which bills are in the legislature. So Chief Phipps, as you come across legislation that you think that we need to chime in on as a council, we're going to rely on you for doing that. And then the, oh,
I was
yes.
just going to say on that as well, on every Friday, AWC, all Washington cities,
Oh,
they
yes.
do have a Friday legislative bulletin that they go through, I think at about 12 o'clock on Friday. So we're
Oh,
also
excellent.
able to sit
Okay.
in and
So you've got a pulse on that.
that way as well. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So you'll let the rest of us know
Yeah,
what we need.
I can work on that as well.
And the reason why I bring it up is because when we've done this before with other communities, it makes a big impact. And if we can either send letters of support of legislation or testifying, it does carry some weight. And especially given the fact that we're a rural community with different needs than Seattle and Tacoma and Spokane. So having our rural perspective is very good. The third one, and that's on behavioral health. There's a lot more interest in this issue and seeing how we can maybe reorganize or reprioritize our dollars so that those repeat calls that we have, that we can make sure that we've got plenty of resources. And so I know that both chiefs are breaking out numbers on calls and responses. And the only thing that I would add is if you're able to kind of get a little more granular and say, okay, these calls are behavioral health issues, because City of Kirkland is doing that. And I think that there's value as more cities have data that they can share with the state and the county to help get us the resources. So, you know, if it's a matter of having 3 behavioral health specialists rather than 2 professional firefighters or police officers, where we can shift some dollars around, that might be beneficial for all of us.
Yeah. One of the other things that I'd like to see, and I know that you guys are working on coming up with measures of success. I know it's kind of difficult in terms of mental health and those types of things, because you're looking at both quantitative data and qualitative, more of the case study type of thing. But as you guys are working forward on developing those metrics, if you could let us know what you're focusing on now, and if there's, for example, if Ms. Butler thinks that there's better ways to capture it or things that would be helpful, then I think that would be great, both for the committee and for council as well, so that the community is aware of how much help she's providing, because it does seem to be pretty substantial. And I'd like to make sure that that's well known. Yeah, anything about in terms of whether it's reduction of calls for the top 5 most, repeat callers, whether it's about them or someone else, I think that'd be helpful, as well as, the information, for example, when she goes on de-escalation training and then she brings the training back to the officers, and any of that's helpful in terms of just making sure that we're recognizing the amount of value she brings, but you know all of that. So, Chief?
I think you may have answered my question. I was curious about how granular you wanted that detail. This morning, I didn't think we could provide that information. I got back to the station and Mike had a piece of paper on my desk with all the detail that we were looking
Really?
for. So, yeah, so
Wow.
we have different impression codes, and we can probably cross-reference it with incidents that were involving law enforcement. I assume you're going to want to see number of patients we've transported. That level, is that helpful? And then who were voluntarily committed, who were involuntarily committed? I don't know if we can pull that.
That'd be amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was 2.4% of our incidents last year, so it's a very small number.
Slice.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So, okay, and if you think of anything else, let me know, and then I'll work with Perry to get our stuff to you. They're gonna have far more than we are, so.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah, and I don't want to create a ton of extra work, but it is helpful to know, so that as we go forward, we can make sure that we're recognizing that and seeing if there's any additional areas of opportunity. The other question that I wanted to ask you, Councilmember Watson, for the Kirkland dashboard.
Yeah. I have not seen it.
Oh, you
But I
haven't?
understand that it exists, that they've created a dashboard of these statistics so that the council can look at it and say, oh, okay, now I understand it better.
Do you know, is it external or is it internal?
Oh, I'm sure it's external.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That would be helpful to know as well. Okay, so I think that we do not have any further items unless there's anything else. No? All right, in that case, is there a motion to adjourn?
Mayor, does the mayor want to chime in at all?
Mayor Ross?
Oh, hello. No, I think you've covered it all. I'm actually having a meeting with King County, Department of Behavioral Health and Health Services on Wednesday. So all this information will be very helpful. So I don't have anything else.
And you have something Thursday evening. There's something as well. What was that?
There is a town hall.
With the King County Councilwoman.
Yes.
Right,
Okay.
King County, Sarah Perry at the community center. So they just put this together at the end of last week, I guess on 31st. So, and they have people from to talk about her 3 priorities, which is behavioral health, environmental, and I think the third one was. Let's see. Oh, and economic vitality and creative economies. So I believe that starts at 6:30. And it's a good location. We might talk a little bit about expanding the community center.
Sounds great. Councilmember Watson?
Chair Christensen, would Mayor Ross consider public noticing that, or has it already been, so that multiple council members can attend?
Absolutely, we can do that. We can have Dina, our city clerk, do that.
I am planning to attend.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm planning on being there as well.
Okay, so you at least have the 3 of us.
Good call. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Thank you.
All right.
Good job. Good job, Councilor Watson.
All right. So if there's nothing further, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.